Originally, I had resigned myself to never getting to play the Pillar Chase 2 Recode testing because every time Blade would open it, I was preoccupied with something. However, one day I went into the Pillar Chase 2 server to just start saying incoherent things, and then I learned it was open. Seriously, some people were worried I wasn't going to get to play it at all. I was too, honestly. I'm not very attentive when it comes to most things that aren't in my immediate vicinity. Regardless, I have a lot of things I want to say about the Recode itself from a gameplay perspective. Before we get into that, I think I also just want to say thank you to Blade. This guy's been working tirelessly to recode the entire game from the ground up as the sole programmer, and it's so evident how much he cares about this game and its community. Not only is his speed and efficiency with the recode kind of just terrifying, but I can also see the improvement in his game design decisions and knowledge in this recode. I have to say it's just incredible. Please show him your support because he absolutely deserves it, as well as all the rest of the people on the Pillar Chase development squad. So, with what's there currently, what are the big changes? Firstly, the lobby system is no longer just one singular instance. It's a queue system now. I have to say this is a fantastic change. This not only ensures that every lobby is full, but it also knows that the people you're sitting down to play with are a lot more committed to staying in a match until the end. Once the recode does release, expect there to be minimal downtime between your matches. Dying early no longer means you have to wait several minutes, you can just queue up for your next match. You also get additional monster chance for sitting through a match until the end, even if you die, which is really nice. Moving on to Survivor. Survivors no longer have personal tasks. Tasks are now universal and cooperative. Doing a task solo is definitely possible, it just takes quite some time now. Survivors also now have access to third person. Originally I was scared of it being added to the regular game, but now I know it's going to be pretty fine on the recode. You can still do the usual third person look around corner and loops, but assuming the entire game will be balanced with it in mind, and I'm sure it'll at least be considered, there's nothing to worry about. It's a cool feature for those who want it, although I'll be sticking to first person personally. Next, we have optional escape tasks. While I'm not sold on escapes as a whole, I am a very big fan of maps having a secondary set of objectives that directly benefit the survivors. On Dungeon, there's gears around the map. You can't pick any of them up until someone locates the exit. Upon locating it, everyone sees where it is for a brief moment, and then that's it. It's down to finding it yourself. Once all the gears are brought to the elevator, which is a team effort, the countdown begins, and anyone who is on the elevator once it hits 0 escapes the match. Monsters can add time to the countdown by attacking near the elevator as well, so not only can they just defend the generator, but they can also prevent any stray survivors from escaping if it does get armed. Now, monsters. Monsters haven't really changed much at all, actually. Monsters just affected by the system mechanic changes and gameplay tweaks, but the role itself is how it's always been. Moving your camera is really nice and doesn't require right-clicking, and you can now rebind monster controls. The only other notable monster change is a pretty big one, and it'll make certain maps way easier for monster. Breakable walls. I assume every map will have something that the monster can interact with to benefit itself, it's just on Dungeon, it's breakable walls. Monsters can freely pass through these walls upon breaking them and can see through them, however for survivors it's just an impassable black hole. This really does help Monster maintain an element of surprise while giving them better routes as well as more overall routes. This is just a fantastic change, and Monsters desperately did need this, especially on some maps more than others. Outside of that, there really aren't that many notable changes. In my opinion, the Recode's building blocks that it's adding to the game right now have a lot more long-term intrigue and playability. Also, sliding is gone. That makes me smile. Now that I've talked about the basics of gameplay, time for some opinions. I'll first go over the things I'm not super sure on, and then I'll talk about some of the things I'd do to make the game better. Let's start with Monster. Monster is going to be a lot more dynamic and strategic to play, and by that, I mean you do have a secondary objective as Monster now: deny the escape. You can't deny both tasks as well as the escape simultaneously. Even without that, everything is going to get done anyways because there's 13 survivors. This is where my first big concern comes in. The lobby system is fantastic and ensures there's a full lobby, but equally so it ensures there's a full lobby. As survivors get better, learn the map, learn the spawn locations of everything, things can happen really fast and it can force the monster on the defensive very easily. Tasks will get done faster and faster, and Monster will likely already be put on the defensive before they can even draw first blood. Survivors can pressure Monsters so much easier due to every lobby having a consistent 13 survivors over the usual 8 or 9 in the main instance. RNG is now a much greater factor. My first match as Vapor had the elevator spawn in a room that was practically in the center of the map. This means there were 4 directions for survivors to escape to, and I was constantly around other survivors, so I had very little time to regenerate my stamina. Because of that, I felt I couldn't afford to do much other than play defensively. Sorry for also being sweaty in my match, but I really wanted to test the game's limits. Breakable walls absolutely helped me catch a few survivors, and while I did ultimately deny the escape from activating in the first place, I only managed to kill 8 survivors in the end. That's far better than most people do on the Recode, and 8 to 9 is the average main game lobby. That being said, it's still considered a loss. Meanwhile, I've had matches where the elevators spawn in a dead-end room, only accessible by a narrow doorway. Not only would this be significantly easier for any monster to defend, but it'd be borderline impossible to contest against a trapping monster. The main point I'm trying to illustrate here is that monster presence is going to be very difficult to get right. Every monster is going to be heavily incentivized to contest these escape options as early as possible, because the fact that every survivor can escape from a match is just way too threatening not just to victory, but also to your fun as monster. This also highlights just how flawed the current win and loss system is in the Recode. If all survivors but one escape, and then the monster kills that survivor, it's technically a monster win, even though you only got one kill. That makes no sense. As for survivors, I have very little to criticize other than how fast they could do their tasks or arm the escape in the first place. Slower monsters might especially struggle if survivors can progress as fast as they do currently. The harder it is for survivors to learn every spawn location, the better, as well as just naturally spacing out these tasks and pacing them differently. While I am criticizing survivor speed and efficiency, it might be good to add a little path for people to the elevator if they hold out a gear. This is just to prevent I Love Dandy's World 4422 from picking up a gear, drooling all over themselves, and not doing anything with it until they die. Outside of that, I don't really have any particular problems with survivors this time, which is pretty nice. From here, all I have are really more so suggestions rather than criticism. My first major suggestion is to rework the win conditions and what constitutes a victory for both sides. Dead by Daylight has a point system to determine what counts as a win. Killers in Dead by Daylight aren't incentivized to just kill, but also use their abilities frequently and just create terror. It's important for monsters to kill fast in Pillar Chase because of how many survivors there are, but I think a win for monsters shouldn't have to be killing every single survivor, especially now that they can win without technically doing so anymore. Monsters should accrue points doing various things like killing survivors, interrupting objectives, killing people holding escape items, destroying items, killing people with certain strong chaser stealth upgrades, using their abilities, the time between kills, the less time the better, stuff like that. Similarly, survivors shouldn't win or lose depending on whether or not they survive, and nothing more. I think the amount they contribute to tasks or escaping, the items they use, the upgrades they use, the time they spend in chase, the teammates they help, all of these things should be valued. Someone who does a lot for their team as survivor deserves recognition, just as a monster who didn't fully lobby wipe but still devastated a lobby and prevented the escape from being fulfilled is still worthy of that. I know I just used DBD as an example, but one of the few complaints people have about their system is that it doesn't recognize survivors as anything more than alive or dead. DBD recognizes a killer's value outside of a lobby wipe, but survivors are only seen as either of those two states. Pillar Chase should recognize the individual merits of both the monster and a survivor in a match that determines whether or not they individually performed well. Maybe it could give some extra bonuses for reaching certain point thresholds too. Does this technically mean that both survivors and killers could win at the same time? Yeah, and that's fine. Again, it's about individual performances in two completely different roles. I think it's probably better for the game in the long term, and it suits the asymmetrical nature of it. Next is escapes. I do not want every map to be an elevator situation where all you have to do is repair a generator and then every single survivor can escape. On some maps, only 4 people should be able to escape, and it's either first come first serve, or survivors could even compete and fight over it. Imagine a map where once the escape is repaired, it has to be activated by a button that's so far away the survivor who opens it for everyone can't get there in time. It gets even better if it takes multiple survivors staying behind, instead of just one. There should be sacrifice, cost, heroism, and even selfishness that goes into these escapes. Dungeon being a map where every survivor can escape is fine, but if every map is like that, I'm not going to enjoy this addition to the gameplay loop. If every map's escape allows for survivors to just leave, the smart thing for any killer to do is just camp that area and adapt from there, because that's just way too big of a threat to their fun as monster. The Recode adds so much cooperation, which I really like, that only makes gameplay elements that incentivize players to self-sacrifice or be selfish even more interesting for both survivors and monsters. I've alluded to this already, but I don't think it should be escapes on every single map. It should instead just be secondary survival objectives or something. Imagine a really dark map has survivors repairing several generators that light up the map, making it easier for them to see the monster. What if one map opened up some doors that leads to some item stashes? What if one map opened up a healing station that burst heals survivors but increases their damage taken for a short period of time upon usage? What if there was a map that opened up more and more for both survivors and monsters as they did the task, with the map changing more so to favor the survivor, but giving the monster an even scarier early game because of it? It would put a lot less pressure on the monster to prevent this one specific objective from being done, but still give survivors reason to complete it and improves their chances of survival.
The match won't be over in 60 seconds if the monster makes a misplay or doesn't hard defend the escape. I think it's really worth exploring. Making just escapes with no limitations isn't going to be very fun long term if I had to guess, but that's just me. More for Survivor, I think when playing as a Survivor, it might be nice to have another circle to track how much Monster Chance you might be earning that round and how much you need for your next one, all that stuff. I really have no idea how earning Monster Chance works anymore, so that might be a good addition. More importantly, Monster Chance should not be rewarded until either you die or escape. I'm not sure if it already does this, but that's what it should be. Make people actually have to play the match to get their Monster Chance. I don't want people joining the lobby with the queue system only to just leave immediately anyways. I think now that the main instance of the game is so cleaned up and it's just a queue, it'd be a fantastic time to add a monster testing zone. Please. Put some respawning NPC survivors running around, a playground with some various geometries, all that stuff. Maybe even give some people some commands they can use to test certain things. Not only would this just allow new players to try out monsters, preferably before they buy them, but it'll also let you test keybinds as well as easily replicate or show off bugs to be patched. The map favoriting system is also worth bringing up again. I forgot how exactly it was going to work or if it was ever actually going to be implemented, but I like the idea of being able to curate your own map pool for your monsters. The idea I like the most in my head is being able to select a map loadout of some kind from each monster individually. The more maps you pick, the better your chance of getting one of those maps selected to the point where you can at least guarantee one of those maps more than likely. However, if you only pick one or two maps you want to play on as that monster, the chance of you actually getting one of those maps is a lot lower. I don't know how the math behind it should work, but I like the idea. It gives players more control over their monster matches without allowing them to pick just one of the best maps for their monsters straight up. I was a little scared of what the recode was actually going to look like when it released. Having now played the earliest stages of it, I'm actually really excited to see it develop, and I think this is for the game's betterment in the long term. A lot of the foundations being put in place with the recode are extremely solid. That being said, the recode is still a long ways away, but that only makes me more excited. I know for a fact that there's so much that Blade wants to add to this game, and I'm excited to see what he cooks up. I can't stress how grateful I am to have someone like Blade being the lead developer of one of my favorite Roblox games. Most games, when faced with the difficulties this game has had in the past few months, would be abandoned. But instead, I feel like this game is going to have a really amazing comeback. Please be kind to all the developers of this game and be patient. I'm sure the recode will be great. If you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe, yada yada. Just take care of yourself, alright? See ya.